You know, when you learn the secrets to hitting your irons flush, it becomes really easy. You look forward to hitting that mid-iron out of the fairway because you know you're going to hit a good one, and most of your playing partners are going to struggle hitting those shots. Now, I've put together 3 of my all-time best videos that are going to share with you some of those real secrets to hitting crisp irons. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, most players think about hitting the ball solid or compressing the ball. They think about it as, am I hitting the center of the face? So if you hit the center of the face, it's going to feel fairly solid, but that's only half the battle when compressing it. Actually, this little yellow ball is going to teach me if I'm compressing it. And not only do I need to hit the center of the face, I need to get this yellow ball, instead of pointing up in the air like this, I need to get that ball as close to the ground as possible. I'm going to teach you the exact impact position that you need to get into. So let's learn to where we need to be, where we're trying to end up, where we're hitting this golf ball, learn those mechanics. It's going to help you to lower the ball, get this closer to the ground, and hit some really solid, really compressed iron shots, maybe for the first time in your life. Let's go and get started. All right, so like I said, most players think about it, and myself included, always just thought about, well, if I can hit the center of the face, that's all there is to hitting the ball solid. But there's actually a little bit more to that, and this is why impact alignments are so critical, exactly what I'm going to go over. So not only do I need to come in through this golf ball square and hit the center of the face, I also need to get my hands leading in front and to de-loft this club face so that ball gets lower to the ground. Now this is just a little trailer hitch that would go on the end of your truck bed, show you how to line up your trailer. I got it from a hardware store, but it shows me where the loft is on this club face. So if I get into my proper impact alignments, I get my weight left, my body open, my hands in front, I've used my wrist properly, like I'm going to show you in this video, notice how low that ball is to the ground. Now, when a lot of players end up stalling out with their body, standing up a little bit out of their posture, and flipping this club, now see how much higher this is with the ground. So even if you're swinging dead square and that ball is going dead straight on a string, even if you're hitting the dead center of the face, you may not be getting that solid compression like the pros. Let's go through it step by step here. The first piece is getting your weight left. If my weight is on my, whoops, got the little ball to fly off there, I'll get it in a second. If my weight is on my right foot, then to reach this golf ball, if I'm kind of falling back like a lot of players do, to reach this golf ball, I have to release that club, and now the shaft is leaning back, or maybe just straight up and down. Well, again, that's not going to allow me to get all the energy into that golf ball. Imagine it like a sledgehammer. As I turn this club face down, the face becomes flatter. Imagine I'm hitting this golf ball with a flat face. Let's transferring all the energy from the face into the golf ball. You're going to get the highest ball speeds. That's one of the reasons that your longer irons with less loft go a lot farther. They have less loft and transfer more energy in the golf ball. Now imagine the same thing with a lob wedge. I have a golf ball here, my wedge face is wide open, or that ball would be pointing up into the air like this. That no matter how fast you swing 200 miles an hour, that's a glancing blow. You're never going to hit it nearly as solid. So a big piece of that is to preset my weight left. To feel this, I want you to go ahead and get about 60 to 70% of your weight on your left side. Notice when you do that, you can easily get those hands in front to really de-loft the club and hit it nice and solid. That's the first piece. I want you to preset your weight left. The second piece is going to be the hips. If I stand up and I kind of keep my hips square like a lot of players do, you lose your posture. You're going to have a hard time getting the loft off of it. I want to go ahead and take my hips and I want to open them about 45 degrees. So preset your weight about 60 to 75% on the left. Open your hips 45 degrees. And along with that, I'm going to let my shoulders open too. So I'm not just opening my hips and keeping my shoulders closed like this. I'm going to get my weight left, open my hips, and I want to open my rib cage. So imagine if I have my shirt buttons on my shirt, they're going to be going ahead and opening up also. Now when I do that, you'll see just how easily that puts the hands in front and how solid this is going to be. Now, you can go ahead and hit a few shots like this and they're going to come out fairly low. So I'm going to set up just like I would be at impact here without the last missing piece I'm going to teach you here. And I'm going to hit a few shots and those are going to be pretty solid, pretty well compressed. That ball's only going about 10 feet off the ground there. Now when most players do that, they're missing the final piece and that ball is going to kind of leak off to the right. So when most players get this ball in front and follow those steps that I just did, weight left, hips open, shoulders open, the club face isn't squaring up. And you see, even though I've taken this ball and got it lower to the ground, typically that ball is going to be pointing out to the right somewhere when we're looking from this angle. That ball is going to leak out to the right. There's a little training aid that makes it really easy to feel the right way to square up your wrist. You see, when I lean this shaft forward, for most players, when they lean the shaft forward, that face opens up at the same time. I have to square the face different than I had before. I have to rotate my wrist closed this way, and now you can see that face is square, straight up and down. Most players, when they try to lean the shaft forward, get the face wide open, and it's a weak shot that just kind of floats out to the right. So this little impact snap is what it's called, is a really easy training aid that allows you to feel this. It's a Impact Snap is the brand. All you do is you take this little golf ball and you square up your wrist the right way, and that's going to put that golf ball on the back of my forearm. If I want to exaggerate that even more, I might even have that golf ball slide inside my forearm. And now I'm squaring this face up by rotating my wrist the proper way. You notice how my left wrist is really bowed there. A lot of players will get that wrist kind of cuppy. My left wrist really bows, and my right wrist stays angled back all the way through contact. So now not only am I taking the loft off, but I'm squaring that face up. So when I get that same feeling here now, you notice that this ball is not only going to take off fairly low when I'm watching this, but it's also going to turn over from right to left because I'm squaring the face up the proper way. So nice and low, just a little half shot, and that ball is dead straight, even wanting to turn over slightly from right to left. So those are the keys there. Weight left, hips open, chest open. And the way that keeps from slicing, which most players will do that, is to square the wrist up the proper way like I did with that impact snap. All right, I hit that one nice and solid. Really felt like I compressed it. But here's the part that most players, almost every single player gets wrong. You'll notice that when I took this divot, this is kind of a mid to longer iron, I didn't chop down into the golf ball. And a lot of times when we're trying to get that forward shaft lean, we're getting the hands in front of the club head. Players mistake that for, I'm gonna hit down into the golf ball a lot. And actually when you do that, you lose a bit of that compression and you don't hit the ball quite as solid. Now you'll see this little nail, or this giant, it's not very little, this giant nail I have into this golf ball. This is what I want you to visualize when you're hitting this shot. So let me walk you through how to hammer this nail and how that's going to help you to hit the most crisp, solid iron shots of your life. Let's go and get started. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a tee and I'm going to tee this ball up just so you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to tee this iron up. So I'm going to hover this golf ball a little bit off the ground. Instead of this nail being dead level, I'm going to tilt it down just slightly. That's going to represent how much I'm hitting down into the golf ball. Now you'll notice when I do this, it's not very much. I'm only tilting, if this is level, I'm tilting how much I hit down by just a few degrees. Now this is where everybody goes wrong. They think about when they have that forward shaft lean and my hands are in front of the golf ball, that I'm hitting way down into the ball. I'm kind of pinching it against the ground. I'm gonna have this big divot. I'm really gonna chop down into it. That's not what's going on. In reality, what I'm doing is I'm hitting very slightly down through the golf ball, and my hands are actually going from low to high so that I can brush pretty even with the ground and still take loft off. So let me walk you through exactly what that means, what you need to do to make that happen. So first, let's talk about how much this should be angled down. Pros are hitting down between 3 degrees with their long irons and 6 degrees with their short irons. That's not very much. You think about a clock face here. If this is 12 o'clock, you look at 12:01 on the clock, just 1 minute past 12, or I should probably go this way. I'm looking in reverse here. 1 minute on a clock face, that's 6 degrees difference. So the difference between what pros are hitting down with their long irons and all the way down to their wedges where they're taking these big divots is only 3 degrees. It's half of 1 minute that they're hitting down into this golf ball. It's not much. So the only reason that your wedges take a big cut of the turf is because of that loft. When it hits the ball, it shoots the club down in the ground and it starts to actually kick up a little bit extra turf just because of that sharp leading edge. So it's not that we're trying to lead these hands forward and hit down into it. We're trying to lead these hands forward to take off loft and to come in fairly level. Let me go over exactly what that means. And then we're gonna talk about what the body needs to do to get there. Here's a little tool I'm gonna put on my club face just to show you where the loft is pointing. Now, if I wanna get the most compression of this golf ball, what I'd love to do is hit down, matching that nail, and I'd love to take off as much loft as possible off this club to match the compression. So if I could get this club matching that nail, I'm gonna have the most compression possible. Now, that's never gonna happen in a real swing, but that's what I wanna feel like. Here's another secret that players never get right when they're doing this. Your hands can actually never get in front of your belt buckle. So if I'm thinking about, okay, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna push my hands in front of my body, that's never gonna work. As soon as you start opening up with speed, your hands are never gonna be able to race in front of your body enough to do that. What I have to do is I have to keep my hands at my belt buckle, and I have to turn my belt buckle forward enough to where my hands can still lean in front. Now that looks like my hands are way up here in front, but in reality they're not. I'm gonna keep my club here the same relationship to my body. I'm gonna turn my body back square, and that's where my hands are. This is forward shaft lean. This isn't forward shaft lean. I have to have my hands back here, and the way that I get the shaft lean is I rotate my body into the shot. So now if I'm doing this correctly, I'm visualizing hitting down on this nail slightly, and I'm visualizing the loft of my club also matching that nail. And that comes from taking my belt buckle from here to there at contact. That's where I need to be. So set up to the golf ball, rotate your belt buckle in front, rotate your hips in front, let this right heel come slightly off the ground, and that's gonna preset your hands in a position where you're really gonna compress the golf ball. This is where that should be if you're trying to feel that. So I'm gonna take my right hand, I'm gonna angle it back a little bit, so my knuckles toward my elbow. I'm gonna take my left hand, I'm gonna bow it a little bit, and I'm gonna put both of those hands kind of in front of my right pant pocket, my right hip. Now as I rotate into contact, that's where you're really gonna compress it. So you're feeling like you're gonna hit down slightly on this golf ball, just very slight amount, and I'm feeling like my body rotates open, my hands are in front of my right hip, and that's kind of the secret to making this happen. I'm trying to match the loft on this club, or the face of this club, just as though I'm gonna hit flush with that nail head, and I'm gonna drive that nail head slightly down and forward. If I'm doing this, I'm adding loft, I'm glancing across that nail head. I'm not delivering the compression into the golf ball. It's like a glancing blow versus a solid smack. So now let's take that same feeling and let's hit a golf ball. So here, I'm gonna feel like all the momentum of my body is transferring into this ball, and I'm really compressing it. Now in a second, I'm gonna tell you the last piece of this. I've shared a lot of secrets here, but there's one more missing piece to really making this super intuitive and very easy to do. Oh man, I hit that one really good.
Hey guys, I'm Robin Rosado with Top Speed Golf. I got an awesome video today to help you hit your irons pure. I'm gonna go over my favorite drill to hitting your irons really solid. So let's go and get started. All right, before we get into the drill, let's actually talk about the things I see the most when people are really trying to hit their irons. You know, on TV, you see these tour players, they're hitting their irons far and they're hitting it high. So the number one thing I see people do is they try to do that. They try to mimic hitting it high. Well, what does that create? Well, the most common thing I see is people start flipping at the golf ball. So my club head is now passing my hands and you're trying to really hit it high. So with the flip, it is going to be a matter of timing. You know, the reason why you're not hitting it solid consistently, maybe you're flipping it a little bit too early and then you're catching the ground beforehand, or you're coming out of your posture, hitting it thin, but sometimes you'll hit it solid, which I'll get into it here in a second, but it's not really going that far. Yeah, you've hit it high, but you feel like, I can get a little bit more out of it. But then here's the second part. Someone came up to you, maybe even a pro came up to you and said, hey, you're flipping at this, you need to hit more down on it. So then you go and do that. You hit down on it, and again, it's really not producing the shot that you want. So I'll dive into it. I'm gonna hit a shot here where I'm gonna flip at it. We're gonna go over three main numbers here at the GC quad. We're gonna talk about our angle of attack, our spin loft, and dynamic loft. We're gonna discuss how those three numbers are super important to maximizing your irons and hitting them really solid. All right, on that one there, I really tried to flip with it. So let's go look at the numbers here. So we're gonna see here that my loft on the club was at 30, my dynamic loft was 35 degrees. Not really all that good. We really wanna come into it. Tour average is right around 24 degrees. The loft on my 7-iron here is actually 34, so I actually added a degree of loft there. Not really all that great. Angle of attack here was negative 1.1. Again, not really that great. Tour average is gonna be somewhere about negative 4.3 down on it. And as you see here with my speed, I only swung it at 81 miles per hour because when we're flipping at it, I'm throwing the club early, so then my maximum speed is somewhere before the golf ball. So by the time my club head gets to the golf ball, I'm already decelling. And as you can see there, my distance was only 131. Not really all that good. So in this next shot here, so I've just identified the fact that I'm hitting it high, not getting a bunch of distance, I'm flipping at it. So I'm just gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna hit down on this golf ball, and let's go take a look at those numbers. All right, so on that one there, I did hit more down on it because I was told to do that. But let's go look at these numbers here. So we're gonna see that my dynamic loft was 25 degrees. Okay, that's actually pretty good. We wanna be somewhere around 25, 24 degrees with our dynamic loft. But if we take this here now if you look at my angle of attack, is at negative 11. So that's gonna be a little bit too much than we want it to be. Remember, we want that number to be around negative 4.3. So because we've hit 2 down on it and we de-loft it better now, but if you look at that spin loft, adding those two numbers, our spin loft is gonna be when we're taking that dynamic loft and of our angle of attack, putting those together, you'll see that spin wedge is creating that spin loft. So it's at 36. Remember in the last shot that I just hit when I flipped it, my spin loft was again 36. So all I did was take the same thing there and I just turned it down. So yeah, I swung it a little bit faster. You see I'm at 93 miles per hour because remember when I'm flipping at it, I'm losing my speed a little bit too early. So because I'm hitting more down on it, I'm taking my maximum speed closer to that golf ball. So then I hit it a little bit further. I went 158 on it. But because I hit 2 down on it this time, and because my spin loft now is at 36, the same as flipping at it, it didn't really maximize what I could out of this 7-iron. All right, so that one felt pretty good. I didn't hit down on it as much. I really got some good shaft lean into it. I hit the turf after the ball, produced a really good long shot for me. So let's look at the numbers here. If you look at my dynamic loft, I'm at 23 degrees there. Remember, that dynamic loft is a loft coming into the golf ball of my club face. So that's pretty darn perfect where I want it to be. And if you look at my angle of attack, I'm around -6 there. So my angle of attack coming into it, I didn't chop down on it too much, nor did I flip at it. It's pretty close. Remember, tour average is about -4.3. So taking those two numbers together, now my spin loft is about 29 degrees. So I narrowed those things up. What it did, it produced a perfect flight where I wanted to go. Good height, gave me a ton of ball speed. And as you can see, I compressed the ball really well. So why don't we go ahead and dive into the drill here to how I got there. All right, so let's get into the drill here that helped me get to those good numbers that I just showed you. So in this drill, I want you to grab a 7-iron. The reason we're grabbing a 7-iron is because we're gonna touch on de-lofting and clubbing, creating shaft lean. And what we're gonna try to produce here is we're gonna try to produce a lower shot, an over-exaggerated shot here. The reason for a 7-iron, because a 6-iron, 5-iron, 4-iron, it's pretty easy to kind of manipulate to hit it lower. And with an 8-iron and 9-iron, it's a little bit harder to hit it low without much loft. So 7-iron is the right club we wanna take. So you're gonna get your normal setup as you would for a 7-iron here. And you're only gonna take it back to about halfway back, so waist high on the way back and on the way through. Now, on the way back, as we start to come down and hit the golf ball, remember, we're talking about de-lofting this golf club. So when we're de-lofting it, the one thing I want you to feel here is I want you to feel like your logo of the glove is turning down towards that golf ball. As you can see right here, it is de-lofting my club. Now marry that in my right hand, so you want both of our hands to do the same thing here. So you've heard the term of covering the golf ball. We talk about feeling like you're petting the turf with this right hand. So my logo of the glove is turning down, and my right hand is facing down to the turf, petting the grass. So now what that is, I don't want to just go ahead and hit the golf ball, because remember, we want a good angle of attack. So with this here, as we're de-lofting the golf club, to get to your release point here, I want you to focus on your left side here. My left tip and my left shoulder are rotating out of the way, but they're not just rotating. You want to get them to rotate up and away. Technically at impact, my left tip should be about 20 degrees higher than my right. at impact on a normal shot. So that's why here, when you go halfway back, we're de-lofting the club and rotating up and away, so then we're only going to halfway. Again, you should be producing a solid lower shot. It's an over-exaggerated feeling through impact. I want you to hit 10 solid shots like this. You can't move on before you do that. If you catch it chunky, there's a good chance you flipped at it. If you catch it a little bit thin, probably the same deal there. You want to have a nice, solid turf after the ball shot, come out a little bit low, and when you get to 10, then go and hit a full shot and see if you can mimic exactly what you just did there with that drill as far as de-lofting the club, rotating up and away with your left side here, left hip and left shoulder, and onto your good follow through. So now that we got you hitting the ball really solid with some good shaft lean, some good compression, well, what do we do after we make contact? Well, we need to get to our straight line release. So Clay's gonna talk about that here in a second. You're gonna wanna click on the iCard because it's gonna take you to the full version of that video. So good luck working on it out there, guys. Have fun as always, and play well.
You know, a common misconception I see is that we want to create lag and we just want to hold that lag all the way on through contact and get as much lag as we can coming through contact, and that's simply not true. In the release section, we're going to talk about how to turn that lag into energy, how to turn that into speed so that you can hit it very far and do it, like we mentioned, without hardly any effort at all. And as we're coming through contact, we're going to fully release this angle as we're about 45 past contact. So if I draw, you know, a 45-degree angle, I should be looking at both arms, nice and straight, the club splitting those arms, so that by releasing the club, by getting this angle to release as we're coming through contact, that's what's going to create the speed. Our hands are moving a very short distance, our club is moving a very long distance through contact, and it creates that whip-like effect. Very different swings, hitting the exact same position. So first let's take a look at Dustin Johnson, releasing the club 45 past. And the reason we're going to see such different swings producing similar positions is that this is the real physics of how this has to happen. Here we're looking at Sergio Garcia. Again, we're going to see tons of